We've all been conditioned to think that love is about earning someone's attention, proving our worth, and constantly auditioning for a role in their life. That mindset is poison. The moment you start chasing validation, you hand over your power and silently accept the lie that you need to convince someone to choose you. Real love doesn't work that way. Real love is recognizing your value and refusing to shrink just so someone else can feel bigger. When you compete for someone's attention, you're already telling yourself a dangerous story. That you're replaceable, that your place in their life is fragile, and that it depends on how hard you try. That narrative traps you in a cycle of desperation, where their approval becomes your oxygen. But when you step back and see yourself clearly, you realize that the very fact that they had access to you was the privilege. You weren't a contestant, you were the prize all along. The truth is, competing for love is a losing game because it assumes you're on the same level as everyone else in their orbit. You're not. The second you stop lowering yourself to earn what should already be freely given, everything shifts. You stop fighting for crumbs, and you start demanding a table worthy of your presence. That's when the dynamic changes. Not because you yelled louder, but because you walked away from the contest they created. Confidence isn't about arrogance, it's about certainty. Certainty that you bring value, certainty that your presence is a gift, certainty that you never need to beg for a seat in someone's life. When you hold that frame, people either rise to meet you or they fall away. And the ones who fall away, they were never capable of seeing your worth in the first place. One of the biggest traps we fall into is thinking that love is about pursuit. That if we just chase hard enough, prove enough, or show enough loyalty, the other person will finally turn around and see us. But chasing is exhausting, and worse, it's disempowering. When you chase, you put the other person in the role of the chooser, and you reduce yourself to someone waiting to be picked. That's not power, that's permission seeking. The real shift happens when you decide to stop asking, "Will they choose me?" and start asking, "Do I even choose them?" That question flips the dynamic on its head. Suddenly, you're not chasing approval. You're evaluating whether they measure up to the life, the love, and the standard you've set for yourself. That's where confidence begins, not in their validation, but in your ability to decide who is worthy of access to you. Choosing isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's about recognizing that not everyone who wants you deserves you, and not everyone you want is capable of rising to your level. When you choose, you protect your energy, your time, and your heart. You stop being a passive participant in your own love story and become the author of it. The beauty of this shift is that people feel it. They sense when you're no longer dependent on their attention to feel complete. That subtle change in energy makes you magnetic, because nothing is more attractive than someone who knows their own worth and acts like it. You stop orbiting around someone else's approval, and suddenly, it's them who starts circling yours. There is a point where words lose their power. You can plead, you can explain, you can try to justify your worth. But the more you do, the less impact your voice has. Begging for attention, affection, or commitment only reinforces one thing in the other person's mind, that they hold the power, and you are willing to shrink yourself to keep them. That's not love, that's submission to scarcity. Silence, on the other hand, is a force that cannot be ignored. When you stop over-explaining, stop chasing, and stop repeating yourself, you introduce a tension they didn't expect. Silence makes them sit with the weight of their actions, or their lack of them. It creates a void, and in that void, they are forced to confront the reality of what life feels like without your voice constantly filling the gaps. Begging communicates fear. Silence communicates strength. It says, "I will not fight to convince you of my value, because my value is not up for debate." That quiet confidence unsettles people, because it exposes their reliance on your energy. They start realizing that your attention, which they once took for granted, is not infinite. It can be withdrawn, and when it is, the absence speaks louder than anything you could have said. In relationships, the person who begs often ends up invisible, while the person who withdraws becomes unforgettable. Silence isn't passive, it's strategic. It forces the other person to feel what they could lose, instead of being constantly reminded of what they already have. That emotional gap is where regret begins to grow, because silence has a way of echoing louder than words ever could. When you stop begging, you reclaim your dignity. You move from proving to proving nothing. And in that space, the person who once thought they had endless chances starts to realize that silence doesn't just mean the conversation is over. It means the chapter is closing. When most people go through heartbreak or rejection, their first instinct is surface-level change. They hit the gym harder, buy new clothes, change their hairstyle, or post curated photos online to signal they've moved on. While those things can feel empowering in the short term, they only scratch the surface. A look can catch someone's eye, but a life upgrade makes them realize just how much they underestimated you. Upgrading your life means focusing on the substance, not the packaging. It's about building a lifestyle that reflects confidence, purpose, and growth. That might mean pursuing the career you kept putting off, finally taking that trip you always dreamed of, or surrounding yourself with people who elevate you instead of drain you. These are upgrades that transform you from the inside out, and unlike a haircut or a new outfit, they can't be faked. When you invest in yourself at a deeper level, you create a magnetic presence. People feel it when you've stepped into a bigger version of yourself. They sense the energy, the drive, the fulfillment that no external makeover can replicate. The irony is, the more you focus on genuinely upgrading your life, the less you even care about proving a point to the person who once doubted you. That detachment is what makes the impact even stronger. A true life upgrade sends a different kind of message. Not, look what you lost on the outside, but, look what you'll never have access to on the inside. It makes the regret deeper. Because it's not just about missing your smile or your style. It's about missing the evolved, elevated person you've become. That kind of transformation doesn't just change how they see you. It changes how you see yourself. The beauty of this shift is that your growth becomes undeniable. It's not about revenge, it's about revolution. Quietly turning your life into something extraordinary while they're still stuck in the same place. That is the kind of upgrade that no one can overlook, because it's not painted on, it's lived. One of the most powerful positions you can take after someone undervalues you is not blocking them out of your world entirely, but ensuring they can see the transformation without ever being allowed back in. That doesn't mean performing for them. It means living in such a way that your growth, your joy, and your success are undeniable and yet permanently out of their reach. That's where true regret begins, not in what they saw, but in what they can never touch again. Access is the most valuable currency in any relationship. The problem is when we're hurt, we often hand it out too easily. Responding to messages, giving second chances, entertaining excuses. Every time you reopen that door, you weaken the impact of your absence. But when you lock the door and leave the window open just wide enough for them to see in, you send a crystal clear message. Your world may be visible, but it is no longer accessible. This creates a unique kind of tension. They see your glow, your happiness, your progress, but they're no longer invited to participate in it. They feel the sting of being on the outside looking in, and it forces them to recognize that their choices have consequences. Nothing fuels regret more than realizing the best moments are happening without you. No matter how much you want to step back inside, the door won't open. It's not about cruelty. It's about boundaries. Boundaries that say you had your chance and you misused it. Boundaries that are firm, not flexible. And when those boundaries are enforced with consistency, you stop being someone they can recycle whenever they feel lonely, and you become the one who got away, permanently etched in their memory as the person they can't reclaim. The irony is that when you no longer make yourself available, their desire to re-enter increases. They will test the door, they will knock, they will try the handle. But each attempt only reminds them that you've evolved beyond their access point. That silent reminder that life has moved forward and left them behind is far more powerful than any speech or confrontation could ever be. By making them watch from the sidelines, you shift the story completely. You are no longer the person waiting to be chosen. You are the person who chose themselves and built a life so good that the one who let you go is condemned to observe it without ever being part of it again. Closure is one of the most overrated ideas in relationships. People crave it because they think it will give them peace. But real closure rarely comes from the other person. It comes from you. The moment you stop waiting for an explanation or an apology is the moment you regain your power. And ironically, the less closure you give them, the more restless they become, trapped in the uncertainty of unanswered questions. When you refuse to hand someone a neat ending, you leave them with something far more powerful: curiosity. They wonder what you're thinking, how you're feeling, whether you've truly moved on. That uncertainty eats away at them. Because while they once believed they knew everything about you, now they're left guessing. A question mark is far heavier to carry than a period because it lingers. Giving closure is often a gift to the one who hurt you. It relieves their guilt, eases their conscience, and allows them to walk away clean. But withholding it doesn't mean being cruel. It means protecting your energy. It means letting them sit with the discomfort of never really knowing where they stand with you, or what they lost until it's too late. That's not manipulation. It's simply refusing to provide them with comfort they never earned. The power of the question mark is that it stretches out over time. Weeks later, months later, even years later, they can still find themselves replaying moments, wondering what you meant, questioning what you're doing now, and regretting the things they never said. Instead of being remembered as a chapter that neatly closed, you become the story they keep revisiting, trying to piece together what went wrong, and realizing it was them. This lack of closure doesn't weaken your story, it strengthens it. Because you don't need to explain yourself, you don't need to justify, you don't need to end it on their terms. Walking away without giving them that final comfort leaves a lasting impression. They can't categorize you, they can't box you in, and they can't settle the score in their own mind. That unsettled feeling is what makes your absence unforgettable. By turning closure into a lifelong question mark, you ensure your presence is never truly gone. Instead of fading into a closed book, you become the unfinished sentence in their life, the one they'll keep reading in their head, searching for the ending that will never come.